Prisma 6.10 just landed, and there are some awesome goodies and new features inside which will help us when we're working with Prisma Postgres and Prisma ORM. So let's take a look at what's new. We'll start here in the terminal with npx prisma init. We've got a new feature for local Prisma Postgres. All right, so after the initialization runs, what is new as of last version is in the .env file, we get Prisma plus Postgres going to localhost 51213. That's local Prisma Postgres. Before that, this was just a typical dummy URL TCP connection to a Postgres database that you might have locally. But now, of course, it's local Prisma Postgres. And we can go into our Prisma directory here into the schema file and start stubbing something out. So down here, let's say we want to have a model, and we'll call it user. Typical user model that we might want to work with just for demo purposes. We'll save that. Then because we want to use local Prisma Postgres, we need to start it up. So let's come down to the terminal and we'll do npx prisma dev. We'll see something that's new as of version 6.9. Okay, so local Prisma Postgres is running. And what we have now is if we hit T for TCP URLs, we can come up here and we can see we've got a database URL going to local Prisma Postgres. And this is a typical TCP connection string that we might be familiar with if we've used Postgres, rather than what Prisma Postgres offers out of the box, which is that HTTP URL over to accelerate.prisma-data.net. This kind of direct connection is available for remote Prisma Postgres as well. We do that through the UI at console.prisma.io, but now we've got it here available for working with local Prisma Postgres. And so what this means is we can use local Prisma Postgres now with any ORM. It doesn't have to be Prisma ORM. We can use it with any database client we might want to. So we really have a lot of flexibility here if we want to use local Prisma Postgres. Now, if using Prisma ORM like we are here, we should keep this connection string going over to localhost 51213. And we'll keep this running in this terminal. Let's run migrations in another one. Of course, for that, it's just our typical npx prisma migrate dev name is init. All right, so there it is. Our migration has been applied. We have got a database that is in sync with our schema. Now, another thing for working with Prisma Postgres, both remote and local, that was introduced before is in the Prisma extension. So I'm going to get to it here through cursor. I do this drop down. Looks a bit different in VS Code. It's over on the sidebar. But here in the Prisma extension, we've got an area for visual management of our database. So to get some activity here, let's go and create a Prisma Postgres database. Clicking this button allows us just to name a database that we want. So we can do Prisma test, for example, hit enter on that. We choose a region. I'll go with US East 1. And just like that, the database was created. That's a remote Prisma Postgres database over on the Prisma data platform. And right away, we're given the opportunity to copy the connection string. Now, some new tooling here that's introduced at version 6.10 is we've got, of course, our local Prisma Postgres database coming through as well. There's our local databases, our remote databases. We can just click up here to add a new database either locally here or in our personal workspace over on the Prisma data platform, so a remote database there. And what's cool at version 6.10 is that we can work against our local default database here or whatever database we might have locally. And then when we're ready, we can choose to put it up to a remote database on the Prisma data platform. So we hover over this, we see deploy local database. Let's click that. We get this message, we've got to stop the database first. Do we want to proceed? Yes, we do. Then a prompt to choose a project or create a new one. Let's create a new project. We enter a name here, Prisma user database. Maybe we'll do that just since there's one model in there. Again, choose a region. US East 1 is good for me. And there we go, database has been created. So just a few clicks and we can get the local state of our database deployed against a remote database. And of course, we can click into it, that new remote database. And we get Prisma Studio right here within VS Code or cursor. All right, cool. So now let's check out some new stuff that is on the AI code assistant front. And that is there's a new MCP server offered by Prisma, which will allow us to do even more than we could before. I'm going to paste this in here. npx with -y mcp-remote going to prisma.io/mcp. This is going to get the remote MCP server offered by Prisma. Now, when we do this, Prisma wants to authenticate against our Prisma data platform account. So let's go ahead and do that. We can choose to give it full access to the selected workspace. So I'll choose my workspace and then authorize Prisma MCP server. All right, cool. Authorization was successful. We can close this window and go back to our project. All right, so everything looks to be running for the MCP server. Let's go into chat now and we will ask cursor to do something like, am I logged into the Prisma data platform? All right, cool. So it has come back and said we are logged in. That's what we expect. And now let's do create a database called from MCP, something like that. Cursor decided to use US East 1. I like that decision. Okay, so Cursor even decided to put the new connection string directly in the schema file and run migrations. I might not have actually wanted it to go that far, so an idea here is to just instruct it beyond what that initial instruction was, say, don't add the connection string, don't run migrations, and it should skip those steps. All right, so let's hop over to talk about new things in Prisma ORM. So I'll just reject that change. We've got MCP server still running, that's fine. We'll come over here, and what I want to show now is there is now support for the Rust-free version of Prisma ORM if you're using SQL Server, so Microsoft SQL Server as your database, or if you're using PlanetScale. And we'll show how to target those. So like before, if we're using Postgres or if we're using something else, we need to come in here and say preview features. What we need here is going to be query compiler. That's the first one. When you use the Rust-free version of Prisma, you're actually using what we call the query compiler. And then because with the Rust-free version, we actually need to bring our own adapter, we need another preview feature, which is driver adapters, just like that. So just with this line here, putting these things in, this will instruct Prisma to use the Rust-free version. Now we need to install the correct driver adapter for whichever database we're using. And at 6.10, we can do npm install at prisma/adapter msql. Or if we're using PlanetScale, we can do adapter PlanetScale, just like this. So we'll go ahead and install PlanetScale. Now, if we are using PlanetScale, we also want to bring something with us where we can tell it how to fetch. And for that, we can install Undici. So npm install Undici. Then we can go over to our server.ts file to see how to bring this all in. And if we've seen how to do this with Postgres, we are going to do something very simpler. The first import can be Prisma client here. So import Prisma client from @Prisma client. And then the next is from the adapter. So import Prisma PlanetScale from @Prisma. And then it's not to /client PlanetScale. It's going to be adapter PlanetScale. Then let's import from Undici. So import fetch as Undici fetch. So we do Undici fetch. That comes from Undici. Next, we want to get our adapter constant. So const adapter is Prisma PlanetScale. We want to first establish what our URL that we're going to is. Typically, that's going to be on process.env.database URL, something like that. And then fetch can go in here, passing in Undici fetch. Then finally, we can pass the adapter to our Prisma client instance. So we've got Prisma here, new Prisma client. Adapter is going to point up to this adapter here. So if you've wanted to use the Rust-free version of Prisma with either PlanetScale or MS SQL Server, you now can. So finally, let's talk about another new preview feature that is specific to PlanetScale, actually, that comes in at 6.10, and that is this new preview feature called shard keys. And what this does is it gives us access in here in our model to establish what our shard key should be for a given model. And there are two ways to do this. We can either reach for a single field, so we can do shard key like that, and we might have to generate the client. Actually, it's because we're targeting Postgres up here. Of course, we'll need to be targeting MySQL. All right, so shard key can exist just like this on a single field in a model, or if we want to do a compound scenario here, what we can do is come down and say double@shard key should be an array here where we can pass multiple fields, so name and email perhaps. So again, this is specific for PlanetScale at this point, and it should give you a nice way to shard your database and deal with growth in your database as time goes. All right, so that is about it for things to go over in the new release, the 6.10 release of Prisma. If you want to check out more information and a couple other goodies that are in there, you can come over to our GitHub, github.com/prisma/prisma, and go to the releases. You're looking for 6.10.0, and you can read through the notes here. If you want to give us some feedback on what you liked or what you didn't like in 6.10, we invite you to do that. You can reach us on the web. We're at prisma.io, or on X/Twitter. We're at Prisma there. And we'll also leave a link to Discord in the description. We'd love for you to join the community, join the discussion there. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more great content come along as new releases come out, we'd love for you to subscribe. Thanks for watching.